But I got a question for you guys now. Why do you think that some of the paddles that you guys love as reviewers, and you guys, all the other reviewers, right? You said like Apes and Honolulu and Bread and Butter and those guys. Why don't they get UPAA approved? And you can get UPAA approved, pay the marketing license, and you do not need to pay a player. If the paddle is good enough, the players will find it, right? If you are an unsponsored player, you're going to play with the best. And so you guys think that these couple of paddles are the best. They pay $50K for marketing fees. It ends up being $63K for testing and all that stuff. You pay $63K for any player to be allowed to use your paddle. Why don't you think they do it?
Oh, I mean, I have lots of thoughts on this.
All right, let's hear it.
But you go first.
I mean, first of all, I think $63K for some of these mid-sized brands is a pretty substantial investment. I'm sure a lot of them can afford it. Actually, I know a number of them could definitely afford it. But it's like, you're just gambling, right? Like, okay, we did make a really good paddle, and a lot of people really like this paddle, but like now we have to hope and pray that these unsigned pros who may be decent or they aren't that good, and then they're just going to use it and we'll hope that somehow we earn that $63K back. Like, I think that gamble is really large. So if you have no pros, that seems silly. But also, one of the even bigger things that probably leads into some of the other stuff we'll talk about is like, I just think that a Honolulu is a perfect example in my mind. Let's take like the J2NF, which was like pretty big last year. The paddle is very good, but I don't think most pros would probably pick it as what they would use. But I think for amateurs, it has a lot of things going for it that are extremely appealing. One, the price is like very reasonable. That's great. The sweet spot is very large. Pros, I think they like sweet spots, but it's probably not the biggest priority. It was, at the time, lower end of power. Pros probably want more power than what it has. And then is pretty durable. Pros don't really care about durability. Like, yeah, they don't want their stuff to break, but like, you guys get as many as you want. So like, in that way, it doesn't matter that much. So I think there are things that are really appealing to an amateur and important. Sweet spot size, it's quick in the hand, and it's cheap and durable. And like most of those things I just listed, a pro's like, I don't care. Give me literally whatever the best performing thing is.
But I also think specifically in the case of Honolulu, it would not make sense for them because their strategy of making paddles is, we're going to have a factory make 12 different paddles, and we're going to buy a small quantity of all of them and then see which one sells well and then cut the rest. They just throw everything at the wall and find the one that sticks and then make that. So like, it wouldn't make sense for them to be like, we got to pay $3,000 for this one and this one and this one. Like, it's just so much more expensive.
Sure. But I guess they could do that after. They could do that after they know which one's already like good, I suppose. So my main thing was like, I feel like I see the ROI argument thrown around there a lot, and I don't buy that for a second, because $63,000 comes out to, if you're selling a $200 paddle, that comes out to like 315 paddles, right? Like, somebody makes a good run, I do get the sense that there's probably an incremental 300 paddles sold over the course of a year.
Okay,
right?
Think about this though. Let's take Pickle. I think it's probably one of the best examples. Tyra, Gabe, two people, Gabe especially, because he's playing with Ben and winning all the time. But Tyra's also like very elite and like just very appealing as a person. I don't think both of them have moved the needle for Pickle in the way that they would hope. Like, I would be willing to bet you that a reviewer, if Pickle made like a really good paddle that they all liked, would move the needle significantly more than what a player would. So then to me, it's like, okay, while maybe 63 grand isn't the end of the world, like, why are you going to do it if like Gabe and Tyra can't even move the needle enough?
I don't know if like, I wish somebody would give us some statistics that we could talk about on that. I had heard that there are certain pros who have mentioned their paddle in an interview and $20,000-$30,000 within the next 48 hours of sales.
Sure.
Like, they win a medal and they immediately $30K of like sales.
Yeah.
So like, I guess I don't know if we can argue on that until we have some information, right? Because like, I agree. You know, there's certain pros you just don't see. They're on the medal stand all the time, but you don't see their paddles frequently. And Yeah, it'd be if anybody wants to drop their pro ROI, like please let us know.
Send it in.
The other thing, like when I think about it too, is like pros. There are a lot like, okay, YOLA's the best example. Like if someone's gonna come in unsigned or someone can pick a new paddle, like let's go back 5 months, maybe 6 months, because it's a little easier of an argument. Most of them are gonna be like, I know the YOLA's good. I know everyone uses a YOLA. I've probably hit a YOLA. I feel like it would be very hard. Like let's say the bread and butter loco like starts popping up. That one has made some noise because of the paddle awards at the end of the year, but like I think it would take a while for all the pros to start going like, oh yeah, dude, like this loco's really legit. Like I think they would more so stick with the paddles that they've already heard about and they see their peers using rather than like, huh, like what is this paddle these reviewers talk about like any good? Like some of them, you know, you're a little bit more familiar.
Well, it doesn't matter to us though, because it's like, and we just would never be able to even have that conversation because if it's not UPAA approved, it doesn't matter.
I'm
to us.
assuming like let's just like assume it was UPAA approved. I think the odds of pros actually picking it up and that being their first choice versus all of the ones they already know that are UPAA. I'm just saying like I think the odds of like that gamble paying off for the brand is very low.
Fair.
Also, a brand like Bread and Butter is already selling out constantly, and if they're already doing well in the numbers they want, why would they spend more just to sell out of the same number of paddles?
There's also that.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't think 300 paddles over the course of a year is a hard thing to ROI on the
I
60K.
agree. If your paddle's good enough, I agree.
Yeah.
Like there are certain brands like I really don't think Honolulu would do that well if they approved one of their paddles,
and I think
or
that
Apes.
gets into like what a pro would like out of their paddle versus what's good for a normal amateur.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. I like the Loco, I think that should be approved. I would use that. Every pro I've let use one says they ask me, the first thing they ask is, can I use this? And I'd say, no, you can't, but they all like it. So there are certain paddles I do think should be approved that aren't, but most I think are better off sticking with USAP approval only.
I think you'd be very surprised if pros. I think you'd be very surprised with how much pros actually try. A lot of them. So I mean, like, there's going to be a handful of pros that are trying tons of paddles. There are going to be some that just do not care and can play with anything. But like, you know, if some of these were available, I do think that the best available paddles for an unsigned pro would sort of find their way into the hands of unsigned pros.
I'd be very curious to see, just because it'll be interesting even as some of these other brands like pop into, like, for example, I think the Pro 4, I think objectively it is a good paddle. And for pros, I think especially if they're getting them for free, a lot of the issues, I mean, this is a perfect example. Yeah. Pro 4 is in the hand of amateurs. First of all, it's expensive. The customer service is not great. They also core crush a lot, so you're going to have to warranty. It's like the whole experience is bad, but if you're Ben Johns, it doesn't matter. Yeah. You have them all in your hand, and like that's where I think, you know, these differences between like a Yola and a Honolulu as an amateur versus a pro, it's like, well, the things that matter to me like aren't even a problem, but it is for the amateur. So like I think things like that are just like kind of interesting and people don't like often think about.
Yeah, well, you hit on some of that stuff earlier. Like, I think a couple of things that we're looking at and why that's going to be why that differs from paddle reviewers is we're looking for peak playability, not durability, right? Yeah. Like, when it's perfectly broken in, when it's got the perfect amount of surface texture, whatever that is, like, we want that sweet spot. And we also want something that, like, breaks in pretty quickly, right? An amateur player doesn't. They want something they can use for 6 months. Yeah. We want something that's, like, ready to hit rockets in a couple hours.
Yeah.
You mentioned the sweet spot. Sweet spot's not a huge deal for pros. That picture of Annalie's paddle that surfaced on Reddit,
that's crazy,
of like her hitting within like a single pickleball size of the sweet spot, like every single time, was nuts. Like, pro players are good ball strikers. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And then I think control paddles. Control doesn't mean anything to pros. Like, I can control a wood paddle. I can control a training tool paddle. Like, I've got that whole series on pros versus 5.0s. We won both of those challenges with a wood paddle and with a training tool. Control means nothing because, personally, I think that control comes from the player, and your paddle can help you be a crutch with control, actually. I think if you've got a super soft, like 18 millimeter paddle as an amateur, that's a crutch. That's not something that's actually helping you. You're not developing your ability to control shots. Because I see this all the time with like people will come into a clinic and they're like hacking at dinks, but they've got the world's softest paddle. I'm like, your paddle is hiding the fact that your dink is broken. So anyway, I do think
This is
that
back to the James Ignatovich argument. Remember when James Ignatovich was like, amateurs need to be using power paddles.
Steven, like, it's interesting. Like, I think, and we've talked about this on the pod. Like, I think ultimately, I think there are so many different styles of play that, like, really it just comes down to, like, preference at the end of the day. Like, I do think control paddles these days are, like, phasing out in relevancy. Like, I think most people could get away with an all court. But, like, I also think a lot of amateurs, like, let's take an amateur who likes pickleball, but they're not drilling all the time. Like, they want to get better, but their version of getting better is like, I'm just going to play a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not really watching videos. I just play a lot. Like, I don't think that player is actually better suited with a boomstick. Like, I think they're better suited with an all-court paddle because they're just taking larger swings and, like, they don't know how to, like, not do much to not pop it up, you know?
I'd agree. Like, I do agree. And I think if your goal is to get better, you should challenge yourself and learn with that power paddle.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that, yes, the control paddles do mask a lot of the issues, and you'll be better with that in the short term. What I'm saying is I think a power paddle will be better for somebody who's actually trying to get better long term, and the control paddles, I think I compare it to teaching a 3-0 how to hit a third shot drop. A 3-0 strategically should never hit a third shot drop. Just drive everything. Like, you're going to win more points that way.
Sure.
However, you're not going to get better. That's the same thing I see here, right? You would be better off using a control paddle because it's going to mask some of your bad habits in the short term. However, you're not going to actually develop the real feel that you need over time.
But there's definitely a limit to it. Like, I think
Keep going.
there's a limit of, like, what power paddle I think would be suitable for somebody to get better with. Because, like,
there's too much.
Maybe, like, a Lux is way too much of a control paddle, but a boomstick is probably way too much. Finding something in the middle. You did a Chasing 5-0 with Jack Monroe, I think, where you guys had, like, mini tennis rackets.
Yeah.
Did you win that
crazy.
one, or did you? I can't remember if you won or lost that one.
It was kind of close.
I remember
but we
being close.
lost.
Yeah, see, that's clearly, even for you guys who have great touch and short swings, it's like, that's completely uncontrollable. So I'm just imagining, like, a boomstick in a 3-0's hands is a tennis racket in your hands, right?
Mm.
And also, one quick note that I think about. So I was thinking about some of my mechanics recently, and, like, I play more with, like, power-ish paddles these days, and where I think a power paddle could also hurt you, and where maybe an all-court paddle would be better, is, like, a power paddle, let's take a boomstick, can mask the fact that you don't actually know how to use your kinetic chain or, like, strike the ball properly, but you can get away with something and, like, hit a weird spot because it's so poppy. I think you can make arguments both sides. I don't think there's right or wrong.
I agree with that too, right? Like, in the quick hand stuff,
yeah,
some of those power paddles will be, I think, a little bit of a crutch.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I do agree with that as well.
Yeah. And I don't think, like, again, I don't think you're wrong. I don't think I'm right in this case. Like, I think you could pick either path and you could develop a player that could be really good or they could be really bad depending on how it's set up. And that's why I think we're kind of at a point where, like, realistically, most amateurs, they should probably just play with an all-court paddle. And then as you get more advanced, I think you start dialing in, like, preferences. Like, what do I want long-term? What do I feel comfortable with? I mean, look at Gabe and Tyra. Like clearly kill it with, like, some of the softest pillows on the market. Like, they're fine. Maybe they'd do better with a power paddle. But, like, I don't know. Looking at Gabe, like, I don't think he really is, like, give me a boomstick, you know?
I think Gabe is an outlier in the pro game, right?
Sure.
And I think Tyra is too. The way that I think their paddles have really actually suited their games. It's not what the vast majority of pros want, but somebody like Gabe really wants. You can actually build, I feel like, a little bit more deception and ability to hit spinny, dippy shots with some of these paddles that aren't as, like, crazy powerful. Particularly from the kitchen, right? You can just have more movement on your shots. Like, if you look at how much he's actually swinging at some of these dinks, you kind of need a dead paddle to do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that with something that's going to trampoline off at low swing speeds.
Yeah.
And so that's something that Gabe is so hard to play against because every single time he swings, he looks like he's about to speed the ball up, but then he'll just massage it with his paddle, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that they're an anomaly in the pro game? Because they're the couple of players that prefer a control paddle over a power. I mean, I'd say it's got to be 90+% of pros are looking for just trampoline effect is the number one thing we're probably looking for.